first pick in the NFL draft.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag podcast. Adam and I are back again with another Mock the Mock with a slight twist tonight. Instead of reviewing one of the professional analysts' mock reviews, we're going to do our own mock alternate picks. We're going to go through the teams, who we think positional wise they should go for, and then the player that fits best, and create our own little mock draft to start the process off, because it's very, very close, isn't it, Adam?
It is. It's less than 2 weeks now, so exciting times. I noticed that they announced a list of who was going to be attending. Not very many, only 13 guys, which was a little bit of a surprise. I don't know if that's an indictment on Detroit a little bit or what, but yeah, only 13. So in theory, everyone should go first round, or I'm not sure about Darius Robinson. He's the one who's going, who maybe not. But all the others should all be first round picks. So.
There's always one on there that we're always like, oh, do they know something that we don't? There's always one. Yeah, the rest all look like certain first rounders, so nothing too weird there. There's not really been any news of lately. I haven't seen any rumblings or anything going about. The only thing I did see, slight bit of news, was apparently Tom Brady is willing to come out of retirement for 3 teams.
Yeah, let's not do this again. There's more than enough quarterbacks in this year's draft. We don't need to go through it again, please.
Let's jump right into it then. I think we agreed prior to coming on, I'm going to go with the first pick. I get a nice easy one. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We've all said all through this process, the Bears need a quarterback, and if they pick anyone other than Caleb Williams, I'd be very, very shocked. The only way I can see them not picking him is if they did a trade for CJ Stroud. It'd be the only way I could see, where else are you getting the value? So that is Caleb Williams locked in. So Adam, you've got a bit more with yours.
I don't think I really do, though. I feel like it's all kind of trending one way, isn't it? This and it does. It's to me, it's something that I've come out and said about, the ownership of the Commanders, that they're more, basketball based, and I just feel like they're going to want to make a big splash, and they're going to want to do something a bit, get the guy that's more marketable and stuff like that. And I just feel like that is Jaden Daniels over Drake May. So. For me, I think I actually think talent-wise, I kind of have them pretty level personally, but I do think that they are going to think about that sort of stuff, and so because of that, I think Jaden Daniels is where it will go. And also, I think myself, because we're kind of looking at what we think we would do with this one. That I just sort of feel like Jaden Daniels kind of makes sense in that respect, and I think I would probably go for Jaden Daniels if I was owning the Commanders and thinking that they want to make a franchise that has struggled, especially when it comes to reputation, that this would be a very good fresh start. So I think I would probably go for Daniels.
Yeah, I'll lock Daniels in there in a second. I was listening to Daniel Jeremiah and Bookie Brooks chatting earlier today, and they made a very interesting point when they were talking about this pick, and they said, why did the Commanders let Sam Howell go? Because he'd be, even if he's kept him, he would be a very good viable backup quarterback, still on a rookie deal, still very cheap. And they said the only thing that they could understand with letting him go would be if they were taking the other UNC quarterback. Now, I don't know whether there was any beef with them at college, whether it's just because Howell was May's mentor maybe or something when they were both there. But they seem to think that it would be awkward to have the 2 UNC quarterbacks both in the same room. So they were like, I think they've moved off of Howell because they're taking May. They seem to think that was logical. So
I mean, maybe there might be something in it, possibly. I just feel like the problem with having someone like Sam Howell there is I just sort of feel like he would just always be looming there to get in, and I think that to a certain degree, I think a complete fresh start with a fresh quarterback, new head coach. I think that by doing all of that, it kind of feels a little bit of a better, like, this is the start of us. Like, I know the ownership took over last year, but I feel like this is the start of what we want to do now. So I think that kind of makes a bit more sense to me that they would do that. Maybe there's something in the whole UNC thing, but I don't know. I don't. Maybe there was some bad blood between the two. I've no idea. But there's nothing that. I mean, you would know more than me on that. You would have watched more college than me. So, but I haven't heard or seen anything.
No, I might have to do a bit more research into it and see if there was anything in particular there, or whether it is just a case that he was his mentor or something like that, and he didn't want him coming in and taking his spot. I don't know. But I've got a very interesting pick. I've got the Patriots pick, who are desperate for two things. They are desperate for a quarterback.
Well,
and they're desperate
I would argue they're desperate for a lot of things, but we'll stick with two just for
two very key positions. I do love the scenario that we've been talking about, where they take Harrison here, who's our idea of generational talent, a wide receiver, and taking a quarterback later. We think Penix might be available for them later. Nix might be later. But in this scenario, I don't think I can risk them doing that in case the other quarterback needy teams, there's three of them coming up later in the draft in the middle, take all of them, and they're not left with who they really, really like. So I'm going to say they take the quarterback of their choice now and take Drake May, who's the next one for me, talent-wise, off of the board.
So basically what you're saying is you're a bit of a chicken and you're going to go for the safe pick.
Calculated.
Okay, well, now that I am number 4 and we're not doing trades in this one, I feel like this really is kind of a obvious pick to go for here. And I'm going to go for the best wide receiver in the draft for a team that's destiny in a wide receiver. That will be Marvin Harrison.
Yep, they definitely need a wide receiver. And all the reports are that Cardinals are open to trading, but they want 3 firsts for the pick. So I think that's quite an expensive pick, and they might not be the team to get a deal done, because I think the Chargers might be after a little bit less. I think the Cardinals are only after 3 firsts because they probably really do want to take Marvin Harrison.
Do you think, I was going to say, do you think that probably means that really deep down they don't want to trade the pick? Because that is a lot for the 4th pick, isn't it?
I think they are happy to move off of it. I think they're just under the understanding that, if we do move down from this, we're not going to get a level of talent at wide receiver that if we stay there. Yeah, there's lots of wide receivers in this. Yeah, we think there's 3 other first rounders to go. But Marvin Harrison, they're probably in there going, he's worth a lot more. He's worth a first. The pick's worth 2 firsts. So that's where they maybe come up with it. And they're like, we're not overly bothered if we don't move down because we get him. So I think that's why they are open to moving it and will shop it, but they want maximum for it. So that gives me the Chargers pick, which is another difficult pick. I think it's got wide receiver written all over it. Just because they've shipped everybody out, and Quentin Johnson wasn't as good as what we thought he was going to be last year. I think his productivity will go up slightly this year because I think Herbert will be better under Harbaugh. So I do think they really, really need a wide receiver. I think Malik Nabers could change that. It's just the Harbaugh factor of the fact that O-line and defense, isn't it? That is how he massively plays. It's how we won all those games at Michigan. It's how we won the national championship. So it is really, really hard to get away from O-line here, but I can't turn down Malik Nabers if I'm the Chargers at this point, if I'm not trading down. Then get O-line later. So I'm going to take Malik Nabers.
The other thing is, as you were saying about O-line, I mean, who would you go for at O-line? Because most people are saying Joe Alt would be the obvious first guy to take. It's left tackle. As we've said before, they've got Rashawn Slater. So it's not really a position that, ironically, they've got a lot of holes, but that isn't one of them that they desperately need to fill. Now, you could argue you could move Slater, maybe. That would be the logic, but why would you, kind of thing? It just seems a strange thing to do. So, yeah, I completely get it. I think wide receiver is an obvious one, and I don't know how a lot of people feel that are listening, but to me, I feel that Neighbours is a lot closer to Harrison than Rome Odunze is to Neighbours, and so I think it's the one that you want to go for, isn't it?
Yeah, we were saying on the show the other day when we were looking at the wide receiver prospects that there is quite a few teams within the league that have Neighbours as their number one wide receiver on their board.
Yeah.
So, there's no one that's got Odunze, I don't think, as their number one wide receiver on their board. So the talent level is definitely there. You're right in saying that as well. Rashawn Slater at left tackle, Zion Johnson at left guard. So the left is completely sorted. And I think you could get a Jordan Morgan, possibly early second, which they've got that pick, who I think would be fantastic at either right tackle or right guard, wherever you want to play him. So I just hold off and take O-line with my second pick.
Right, so I have got your New York Giants in pick 6. Biggest need, it says so, is quarterback. I mean, it's saying it there right now. I mean, JJ McCarthy is still on the ball. However, despite all of that, I do feel like it's not the major need when you actually go through everything. I think it is a major need, but not the major need. So I can see that, given the way that Daniel Jones' contract is situated, that you would probably wait it out another year, or potentially, if there was one of these guys to fall for the second round, that maybe that would be somewhere that you might decide to do that, or go for someone just to give him some there's no reason why the Giants couldn't go for someone like a Jordan Travis later on in the draft and something like that to give some competition, maybe like a Spencer Rattler. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So because of that, I do think you need O-line help, but again, you can do it later on. I'm going to go wide receiver. You've got one more really good wide receiver left. I mean, there's loads of them, but real top-notch wide receiver. And I think he fits your team perfectly because he's a different size, different spec completely to the rest of the receivers you got there. Rome Odunze can go to the Giants.
Happy with that. I've seen him make a lot of catches for Washington that were sometimes, I'd say most wide receivers wouldn't catch. So I think Daniel Jones is going to get a lot of help, even if he just throws the ball near him and Odunze being able to catch it. So he'll probably make Daniel Jones look better. And I also don't think that Daniel Jones is the 32nd worst quarterback in the league. So I would argue that that is sufficient enough if you've got a quarterback good enough to start. And do you not think that Drew Lock is enough of a challenge for him?
Well, unfortunately for Daniel Jones, he may well be enough of a challenge for him. So, I mean, that is something that could happen. But I do just wonder whether if one of the wide quarterbacks even manages to pop up just in a later round, and whether they just take a bit of a flyer on one of them and just sort of like see how they go. But it's not, like I say, it's a major need, but not the major need, and so therefore it's not one that you should be doing this year, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on the next pick with the Titans. You said on the betting show that this is your for sure bet to take of the whole draft, taking Joe Alt. They had a fantastic free agency. I think the Titans have. I think they've filled a lot of holes and done really well. But they still need a lot of work on that O-line. I think they've left it for the draft, so I think they know they are going to get Joe Alt, who he's had lots of starts, already very solid. I think you know what you're getting with him, and you know you're getting good. So Joe Alt for me.
Yeah, definitely makes complete sense. And I would argue, I suppose a lot of people will go Caleb Williams, but I mean, I think you could argue best player in the draft. To be honest, it's just that obviously because of the position, it pushes him down. But yeah, I would say it's a very good pick for them at that spot. So pick 8, the Atlanta Falcons. Now I'm going to completely butcher this stat because I read it earlier and I've kind of forgotten half of it. But basically, there is this stat going out that the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, whose name has completely escaped me,
Raheem Morris.
So the way that Raheem Morris, he always had one of his edge rushers come back to play coverage in a lot of his plays over at the LA Rams. It was quite a common thing that he did. And we've been saying for ages that edge rusher is where the Falcons need to go, that it's something that they've really struggled at. But the one guy who, when playing in college, really played in coverage all the time was Dallas Turner. So he's used to playing the way that they want to play and the way that Raheem Morris wants to play. He's also the guy that a lot of people have spoken up about as the edge number 1. I don't think he's the edge number 1. I personally prefer Latu over him. I think that he's a much better player, but this guy suits the system. And so therefore, if that was the system, then I'd be picking Dallas Turner.
Yeah, I think is it Byron Young that they had last year? It plays that hybrid role as well. And they got a lot of, he was fantastic for them last year. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And we've said when we were doing the process, Dallas Turner is the new hybrid that plays edge and linebacker. Jared Verse is your true edge rusher. And Laiatu Latu is just an absolute technician when it comes to the position. So if it's hybrid than you want, then Dallas Turner's definitely the pick. I've got the Bears again. A lot of people have got. Well, this is a tough pick for me actually, because a lot of people have got Rome Odunze here, haven't they? A lot of quarterback. It's wide receiver definitely a need for them. I mean, they're good at wide receiver. I understand.
It's not a massive need, but I would argue that they probably do need to look at getting one in, because obviously Keenan Allen's deal is basically a 1-year one, isn't it? So I do feel like wide receiver is needed, but I don't think it's necessarily needed here. And when you've just seen the top 3 go already, it does, to me, this feels like it would be a reach if you went for someone like Brian Thomas here.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a reach. Also, there was lots of hype on Tyler Scott, who was the rookie last year. A few glimpses of him for the season. I think Velus Jones is a bit of a bust at wide receiver. I don't think he's really going to make it. But outside of that, if we're moving away from that, they're definitely looking at D-line, aren't they? Edge rushers probably. I don't think they addressed edge rusher in free agency. Obviously, they sorted Montez Sweat's contract out, which was a fantastic pickup for them. So I think with the how talented the edge rushers are, I think you've got pick 9 value. I'm going to go with Jared Verse because he's my favorite. I know you put Laiatu Latu in there, but I'm going to go with Jared Verse as a bit of a monster in that D-line. Adam, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the D-line is definitely what they need to go for. As you said, edge is certainly one thing that you could go for. I mean, the only other one that you could maybe go for is maybe Byron Murphy, just as a bit of help on
high for Murphy. I thought Murphy and John Newton, both first-round talent, but they were like steals at the back end of first round, not really top 10. It's fair.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so I think that's probably why Jared Verse is probably the way forward there, I reckon. Right, number 10 pick, New York Jets. So pretty much all the way through this draft process that we've been talking about these players, it's been wide receiver and it's been O-line, hasn't it? I mean, they have been the obvious ones. I look at the wide receiver, obviously, as we just spoken about, Brian Thomas would be a reach and the top three are gone. So it doesn't feel like that's really the spot. O-line, they did address it quite a lot during the free agency period. And so that kind of makes you feel like, would they go there? Would they not? There is one guy out there who obviously isn't a wide receiver, but he's pretty close to it, and that's Brock Bowers. And this seems to be the way that it's going at the moment. That a lot of people are talking about Brock Bowers going there. I just think them O-line guys, the ones they picked up, I don't see them playing out a whole season. I think they might struggle with that. So I'm going to go O-line. I think there is a strong chance that they could go Brock Bowers in the real draft, but I'm going to go O-line. And then to me, given that Joe Alt's gone, I really think these next three guys are very much, they're much of a muchness. It's really dependent on which one you prefer. I mean, I think Fuanga, Fatanu, and Fashanu, which I think you should all applaud me for being able to say, well, three of them that quickly. They're the three. I like Fuanga a little bit more than the others, so I'm going to go for him. But it's just a matter of which one you prefer.
Yeah, you got the same conversation that we just had with the edge rushers, haven't you? You prefer Latu, I prefer Verse, I prefer Fashanu, you prefer Fuanga. So I got no issue with that at all. He's a bit of a beast. Can play guard as well, can't he? So, Morgan Moses is 33, who they brought over, and Tyron Smith's, I think he's 33 as well. So age is not on their side when it comes to the two tackle positions, when the edge rushers are getting faster and faster. So bringing in a bit of youth is not bad. I can't see them not taking Brock Bowers if he's there, but tackle definitely makes logical sense to me. No problem with that. I have got the Minnesota Vikings that everyone seems to think will trade up to 4 or 5, whichever they've got able to get up to. You've got them sitting and waiting and taking 2 players with the 2 first picks, haven't you? You think that's more sensible value, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of think to myself, who's moving up? Like, who of these teams are moving up for a quarterback? I mean, we've just sort of looked at it, and I can understand why teams might want to move down, but genuinely, which one of these teams around the Vikings or just after the Vikings are moving up for a quarterback? So you got the Broncos, you got the Raiders. They're kind of the two that you sort of feel like would be capable, would want to do it. I don't think the Broncos have got the draft capital, have they?
No, and
really?
I think they're very happy with Bo Nix. And this is quarterback alley, isn't it? At 11, 12, and 13. So I can't see any of those.
It's the Raiders. Can you see the Raiders?
Those 3 going, do you know what? Out of the 3 that are left, Bo Nix is our guy. Let's go up and get him. I think it's JJ McCarthy and Penix for me that I think those 2 would go. I've more upside for me on those 2. So I bet the Broncos are there rubbing their hands going, no one's going up for our guy. So there's no need for them.
I understand why the Vikings have done it, because I think they've now put themselves in a position where if they have to, they can. So they've sort of created this ability to be able to maneuver wherever they like to. I just don't see why they would need to. That's what confuses me. And so I just sort of think, why would you need to move up? You can just sit there. I don't see anyone really jumping ahead of you, unless they want to move up to, say, like 3 and get one of the top guys. That then I could understand it. But if you're sitting there and you're going, no, I'm going to go for JJ McCarthy or one of the other 2, I don't see why you need to, because I don't think he'll go there. So
I think 3 is a possibility as well. I think
I agree, it could be.
I think if you're the Patriots as well, and you only go down to 11, and Penix and Nix are still on the board, then you might think about it with one of those 2. As much as they don't want to put him in above him, it's JJ McCarthy, isn't it, for the Vikings? It's just, you can't get away from what's being said. So I'll pop it in. They got their player at 11 rather than giving up 3 firsts.
Yeah, I think that kind of makes sense, and that's what I was kind of almost saying. Are the Cardinals almost to a certain degree pricing themselves out on purpose, because really they don't want it? Really, they know that maybe they don't need, the Vikings don't need to do it. So it'd be a bit strange to do it. I'm going to keep the Broncos one pretty short. They've got a few problems. Obviously, the defense did give up quite a lot of points last year, so there are things that need doing there. But you cannot go into a season with Jarrett Stidham as your quarterback. So it really does become, do you go Bo Nix or Michael Penix? It's going to be Bo Nix. I just feel like that Sean Payton, and that it's Drew Brees light, isn't it? I mean, that's what it is. And Bo Nix is going to be able to do everything that Sean Payton wants him to do, and he'll probably listen to everything and do it all how he wants it, which is exactly the way that Payton seems to coach. He wants all his guys, so Nix is the one that makes sense to me.
Yeah, fits the scheme, fits the system.
Yeah.
I think he fits it a bit better than Penix as well in terms of job role. So yeah, I got no qualms with that. I've got the Oakland Raiders. Hello, got Vegas Raiders. I'm really torn with this one because they brought in Gardner Minshew, and I don't think that Aiden O'Connell was terrible. I thought he showed glimpses of being able to do something. So I'm half torn whether they'll just go, do you know what, we'll roll for a year with those two and fill some other positions. So I can see them not taking a quarterback, despite the fact everyone says they need one. We saw what Gardner Minshew can do, and like I said, Aiden O'Connell was one of the best of all the rookies from last year in terms of performance-wise. So I'm really, really torn with this one. Running backs too early. O-line, they've got Colton Miller. They've got a left tackle. They've got Dylan Parham at left guard. They got Mumford, who I believe was Ohio State last year. Yeah, I was correct. No more players. So is that a desperate need? And then they addressed the D-line. They got Max Crosby. They got Christian Wilkins. Adam, you might have to help me out on this one. What they got at cornerback? Jack Jones.
So I think that
maybe cornerback or edge rusher. I'm kind of leaning down at the minute.
Yeah, I do think that if Wanga was there, I think that O-line would have made a lot of sense for him. I think he's kind of that sort of Raider style type of person, but he's not. So that doesn't really help. I do think corner is probably slightly more of a need than D-line myself. But I do think defensively they did okay. But I think it's, to a certain degree with the Raiders, I think it's almost like best player available. And I think it's kind of like where you want to go based on the corners and edges and tackles and things like that. So it is really kind of the best player available of them guys. I think corner's not a bad idea myself. And
they're not set fully there, are they?
No, I feel like they could do with a little bit more.
Do like Fashanu though. I think value wise is an absolute steal there. Could shore up your O-line. What have they got?
I like I say, I don't think there's any specific. It's funny with the Raiders; they're kind of like they've got a lot of holes, but none of them are major holes. That's the problem. So it's almost like you don't have to go specifically like that's definitely the position. There's a couple of different spots you could go.
I picked 44 in round 2, which for me is around that TJ Tampa, Mike Sainastrill, Max Melton sort of cornerback, which I think is talented enough. So I'm going to lock in Fashanu. I just can't see him dropping any further than this, and I think he's got the ceiling for me, because he's not had as many starts as the two that have gone before him. I think he's got the ceiling for me to be the best of this class if he reaches that, and I think he could be Pro Bowl level for the next 10 years. I think that's the type of player you could get from him, and I think that upside, you can't take him. Like I say, he's not had the experience and as good already as the other two that have gone, but has the ability to go further than them, I believe. So I'm going to take Fashanu at that point.
Okay, well, it does make sense to go for that. It is one of the areas. With the Saints now on the clock, it's really, to me, I just think, I still think it's too early for wide receiver. I'm really surprised they've got QB as a need, because I think Derek Carr is so entrenched in there with that contract.
You can argue it's a need, but circumstantial. They won't move off of Carr, so it's not a need this year, if that makes sense.
So I think we're talking O-line, D-line. Fashanu is still on the... No, you've taken Fashanu. Fashanu is still on the board. And when I look at D-line, I sort of think you've got Newton and Murphy. They're the two that I kind of like the look of for the Saints. I just think it's just about building the trenches with the Saints. So I don't think there's really anything else to go for. So I think it's very much, for me, it's between Newton and Murphy. I think they will probably go Byron Murphy. I think Byron Murphy will go first, but I'm going to go for Jason Newton, because I actually think that he's the better of the two. I think he might not be the most as flashy as Murphy, but I think he's probably the most solid guy, and I think the Saints would like that. So I would go for Newton.
Yeah, lost a lot of people on that D line during free agency. Only brought over Chase Young. Got Brian Breesy last year, who I thought was quite good. So yeah, a lot of people saying that Jason Newton's similar styled player to Aaron Donald. So you know, he could. I think they'd probably go O-line still. I think they definitely need a bit of help there, but equally, again, it's I think it's not a luxury pick, but a pick where they could go where they need. I think they're okay at areas, just not great at areas. So we're going with Jason Newton,
yeah, that's the one I'm going to go for.
I've got the Colts. Now, I think the whole process of this, we've had Colts taking cornerback every single time. Still got Grover Stewart, so they don't need to go D-line for me. So I'm going with cornerback to get the first pick. Well, look, Cooper DeJean's labelled as the number one on this board.
That's because he is the number one corner. That's why.
So a few years back, we had Derek Stingley and Sauce Gardner were two very high-profile names at the cornerback, and lots of people were hyping up Sauce, and I was like, no, Derek Stingley, he's the guy now. I think Stingley's been brilliant, but Sauce has been another level, hasn't he? I think Quinion Mitchell is the closest thing in this draft to a Sauce Gardner style cornerback. So I can't get over that at the minute. I'm more and more I watch of him, the more and more I like of him. So I'm going to put Quinion Mitchell in as my first cornerback off the ball, which before this whole process started, I didn't think I'd ever be saying.
No, I think he really impressed, didn't he, throughout the whole process. He's impressed at the Senior Bowl. He's then impressed at the Combine. Everyone likes the look of him. And I think he is kind of consensus number one now with a lot of teams. So yeah, I really like Quinion Mitchell for that. And it's not a bad pick at all. I think it's a very good one. So yeah, that's probably what. It's not an awful choice. Pick 16, the Seattle Seahawks. I think it's O-line, D-line again, to be honest. When it comes to these guys, you can go guard, you can go center, but apart from Jackson Powers Johnson, which I just feel like might be a little bit early for him. at this point. So I don't think I'd go for him. I think I'll go for probably the top tackle that's left. So I think Troy Fontenot was the one that I'd go for the Seattle Seahawks.
He's not going far, is he?
Nope.
From
he's just got to go
Washington to Washington.
Hey,
They'll know him very well.
Moving costs, that it's very underrated. You know, I mean, it's not gonna cost him a lot to move. So they're doing him a solid that way.
I'm going to quickly check out. Was Lucas from Washington? Was he Washington State? So he was a Cougar rather than a Husky. I knew they had someone from Washington last year. I think this is a great pick in terms of player fit, because I think they are set at tackles. I think Charles Cross was really good. I think Abram Lucas was really good. I think Fontenot can play guard. I think he might suit playing guard a little bit better as well. Or if they want to move Lucas to guard and have Fontenot as tackle, I'm equally as happy with that. Sorted at centre as well.
Yeah.
Just had a look who they got. Other than that, I think they are quite solid at every position. We've just said that they'll know Furtado very, very well in the building. They've got Ryan Grubb there, who obviously was the offensive coordinator for Washington, so he'll know him very well. And obviously, I guess the GM would go and watch the college play on the Saturdays as well. Saying that, there's another Washington guy on the board. Could you ever see them taking Penix at this point, with the fact that Grubb knows how good he is as well?
I mean, I get it. With something that we have mentioned, isn't it, about them? You know, Geno Smith not being great, got one more year with him, kind of thing. Do they move off and go with Penix afterwards? I just think that if you're going to go with Geno Smith, I feel like you kind of have to go all in to a certain extent and like give him every opportunity to do well. And the one issue was protection, wasn't it? That was the one problem for him last year, and bringing in Fontenot obviously would, you know, help with that. So I just feel like, given that he's the last top tackle on the board, I think it's kind of where you should go in order to be able to save your quarterback. And but it wouldn't shock me if they went for Penix. I could understand the reasoning behind it, but I just think that it's not really the move to go for.
Personally, I think you've missed a player that you would have loved to have them there. I think they could go Laiatu Latu as well. I think, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Edge, again, it's another one that would kind of make sense to go there. I just feel like the big issue for them was keeping Geno Smith upright. That's the reason to go. I've gone for tackle. But yeah, I mean, Latu would be good there. But I don't want to see him on the Seahawks. What are you talking about?
Well, you know, you like him and he's available, so maybe you didn't want to see him drop any further. We've had cornerback. I won't spend too long on the Jags pick. We've had cornerback locked in all through this process at Jacksonville. It's an area that need help. Tyrese Campbell's good. He brought over Ronald Darby.
You not fancy my wide receiver theory?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. I was like almost going to say that's what we've got locked in, but they have Gabe Davis, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Devin Duvernay. I think they wait on wide receiver. We said it's a depth. What have they got in the second round? It's pick. Have they got a second round pick? I don't think they have.
I'm not sure if they have or not. Let me have a look.
I don't think they have.
I do feel like they need to bring in a wide receiver at some point. Yes, they do. They've got pick 48.
48. Oh, they have, yeah. I think they take wide receiver then. Christian Kirk,
I mean, that would make sense. You know, and the other thing is they also have pick 96. They've got one in the third round as well. I mean, it's like, so they could take a wide receiver at either of them two spots. But yeah, I mean, the second round would make a lot of sense, obviously. So
I'm going to go with Terrion Arnold here, the guy that I probably had at number one before Quinion Mitchell decided to impress me. There we go.
So pick 18, the Cincinnati Bengals. I think I think the drop has to stop now. I think Brock Bowers is the way forward for the Bengals. I think O-line is something that they probably do need to focus on a little bit, but with the top 4 gone, I don't think I would go for one. I think I could pick one up in the second round, and I think another weapon is needed. I mean, the tight end is basically Mike Gesicki now, isn't it? But Tyler Boyd is gone. T. Higgins, who knows? Looks like he could well be on his way out. So I think they need another weapon for Joe Burrow. So why not get one of the best tight ends to come out of college in many, many years? So Brock Bowers for me.
Yeah, I mean, I really like their O-line. Well, the names that are on their O-line, I really, really like. Orlando Brown, Trent Brown, Alex Kappa, Ted Karras, all massive, massive names. And I think their oldest is like 31, maybe. I think it's Trent Brown's 31. So I don't think they're desperate. They brought over Jackson Carman from Clemson. I think he's a good talent. So for me, more weapons is fine. Brock Bowers, you were talking about Joe Alt being one of the best players in the draft. I think Brock Bowers has got an argument for being at least in the top 5 in terms of big board players. So the fact he's going at 18, ridiculous. The Rams. I could generally see them taking a quarterback. I really could. But I think Matt Stafford's got 2 years left in him. I think they'll really roll the dice on this year with him. Where do they need help at? It's claiming tackle, D-line. All the D-line are still on there, apart from Jalon Newton, aren't they? So
I think D-line makes a lot of sense for the Rams myself, especially with Aaron Donald now not there. You're not going to replace him. I don't think you're ever going to replace him. So it's not necessarily something to try and do. And obviously any D-line guy who does come in, you are kind of putting that on them a little bit. But I do think D-line is the way forward. I think edge as well. Along the D, I wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I mean, I've had Latu go in here quite a lot.
A lot of people are saying they need to replace Aaron Donald, but I thought Kobe Turner was fantastic last year. Kobe Turner, did he match Donald's record for the most sacks in the season? Did he get 9 sacks in the season, wasn't it?
I think it was something like that, yeah.
So I think people are jumping too quick to say they need to address it with this draft and go Byron Murphy. I think maybe edge rush is probably a more of a need. I can't off the top of my head can't think of any major names other than Byron Young played very well. Rose Boom's more linebacker edge as well. So I think Latu makes sense, staying in California, not going too far. So I'm going to go with Latu because he is phenomenal talent, great technician. You think he's the best edge on the board. He's going at 19. So I'm going to take edge over the interior defensive because I think Kobe Turner's good enough to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's one that like I said, I've been mocking quite a lot there. So that makes sense to me. Pittsburgh Steelers at pick 20. Apparently, the biggest need is a quarterback, according to PFF, which is would be an interesting.
Haven't they?
I feel they probably have addressed it quite a lot. So we're not going to go there. Wide receiver is a big need for them. They really do need to go wide receiver, and I do think they might be a bit of a sneaky team to take one as well. That a lot of people are maybe not thinking of the Steelers to go wide receiver in round 1. Obviously, they do have pick 51 in the second round, and they've got themselves 2 picks in the third round. So you do sort of think to yourself, certainly in the second round, maybe, because that tends to be more the MO with them, isn't it? They tend to go second round, third round when it comes to wide receivers and develop them. They normally find some gem, but I do think I wouldn't be shocked if they went wide receiver. I won't be going there because I just feel like it's the same story as it always is with the Steelers. It's the O-line and it's corner, and it always has been with them. So I'm going to go for my next offensive tackle. JC Latham is my next one to go for. I think that he was great for Alabama. I think he's going to be the type of person that the Steelers are going to really like. And I think he's got the experience over, because the next one after that is Mims. And I just feel like he's got the experience that they're going to want to really make an impact from day one.
Yeah, I mean, Broderick Jones, decent. Dan Moore, decent. I think their O-line's medium. I'm going to call it medium, which I think's fine. A lot of people have had cornerback at this pick as well. Do you feel?
I think it's one of the two makes the most sense. It's just I suppose they kept on getting beaten, didn't they, over the top a lot, and that's something that's happened. It's a difficult one. See, now you're just trying to make me change my pick, aren't you? I know what you're doing.
Oh. Dan Moore, Broderick Jones.
Who have they got at corner? Is it just they've got Joey Porter?
Joey Porter, and then Patrick Peterson's gone now. So
yeah.
Next up, Dante Jackson. Who have they got in terms of youngsters? No one really. They haven't, other than that,
they're probably weaker, aren't they, at corner than they are at O-line? Okay, we'll go corner. I'm going Cooper DeJean. I think he's the best one on the board.
Love that pick for them. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for them as well. I feel like the way that he would play is the way they'd want their corners to play.
So, you were hoping that Cooper DeJean was still there.
That's annoying. I kind of wanted him to come to the Packers, but
yeah, 5 picks time. I've got the Dolphins. That means I can pick Michael Penix. Lovely. Why has quarterback got on there for a need? They're not going to have one next year. He's going to be gone. Tight end, O-line, D-line. I mean, everyone keeps popping in O-line into this because they need to keep Tua safe. Otherwise, he's a concussion away from retirement. But they lost a lot of guys on that defense.
Yeah, I was going to say it seems like everyone's going O-line all the time, but I mean the amount of defensive players that they lost was a hell of a lot. And maybe their logic is go O-line and protect Tua and then go for the defense for the rest of the draft, but they haven't got their 3rd round pick, have they? Because they had that forfeited. They've got a 2nd round pick. So, I mean, there's not much. I don't think they got a 4th round pick. They haven't got a 4th round pick either. So the first 4 rounds, they've basically got their 1st and 2nd. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of problems in that defense.
I'm looking at their O-line: Terran Armstead, Isaiah Wynn, Austin Jackson, Liam Eichenberg. I think there's some decent names on there. I think you're just looking for depth more than anything at that position, which you can pick up. You can pick up good O-line guys from smaller schools that have been missed and be really, really talented. What picks did you say you had? Did you say they had the 3rd pick?
No, 1st and 2nd.
1st and 2nd. So
no 3rd, no 4th.
So maybe the 2nd pick, I think maybe a Javon Foster might still be there, someone like that. Someone like Van Penn from Georgia, still looking for interior. So I'm going to go that they need to replace Christian in the D-line. So Byron Murphy's still there. So I think that's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, PFF have got him as the last top, the top guy in the rankings. And as I say, everyone's going O-line. I just feel like D-line there's a lot that's been lost on that defense.
You're up with the Eagles.
I am up with the Eagles, which personally I think couldn't be any easier to make this pick. They were killed over the top most of the season. The corners didn't play well. They need a corner. Nate Wiggins is sitting there. I think to me, he's the best corner still on the board. Yeah, I'm going Nate Wiggins.
Yeah, I've got no issue with this. They did get beat. Bradbury and Slay are now a lot older. I know they have got Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks both waiting in the wings to take one of those places. It is a bit of a luxury pick. You know, it says wide receiver was an issue. I thought it was an issue as well. They brought in Devontae Parker to go with Smith and Brown. You know, it's Paris Campbell's over there now as well. It's not a bad room, is it?
No, I think it's a decent room, and I think that to me it felt like corner was a glaring problem last year, so that's why it makes sense.
A lot of youngsters on that D line as well. Brought in Bryce Huff as well, who's a youngster too. So sorted there. I've got the Minnesota Vikings again at 23. Already taken a quarterback. What do we think they need? It says quarterback, tight end, guard, center, D line, D back. Well, that's pretty much everywhere. That's pretty much every position. Kicker. Vikings. Let's have a little look. Sorted at wide receiver. Yeah. Right tackle is a bit of an issue. Mims is there. Latham's there. Got Darashaw. Got Bradbury. Yeah, I'm thinking O-line's quite big need at the minute. Brought over Jonathan Greener from Houston. Cornerbacks, fine. They need more than I thought. I
think O-line makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's got to be. To me, they don't have a right tackle, so they do need a tackle. So JC Latham sitting there is obvious. Protect your new quarterback.
Yeah. Right. The Dallas Cowboys.
What glitzy player are they getting?
Well, I mean, I feel you got to go Jonathan Brooks here, haven't you? Surely. The biggest need is a running back, but the fact is you're not going to take one in round one, given the class. There's no need to do it. So you can do that later on down the line. The obvious choice to me is they need tackle. Is the logical thing. O-line is what they need. And actually, I think Amarius Mims, I think that would be the flashy pick. I think he would be the sort of player that they would love in Dallas. So I think Mims makes a lot of sense. I was thinking wide receiver because I do think they need a wide receiver. But again, I think that's something that they can address later on. They've got a second-round pick. They've got a third-round pick. They can do all of that with them two picks there. Although Brian Thomas would probably be the flashy pick, it just kind of feels a little bit like why, you're struggling to pay a lot of players already. Why start another wide receiver contract already? It just feels a bit of a silly thing to do. I'm going to go Mims.
Yeah, I like that pick. Can put him in at right tackle for a season. You could even try him at left guard next to Smith. Is Smith good enough to move to left tackle? It's going to be his first season. So, yeah, I like that pick. And he is a flashy player. Is he at the draft? Is he one of the names that's going to be there? Because he's an absolute monster of a guy. Could you imagine him going onto the stage?
I think he is. I'm not sure. I can't remember now, but I don't think he is.
Because I'd love to see him give the commissioner a hug because he is a giant.
Imagine him in his suit as his suit's like breaking out.
I have your Green Bay Packers. Let's have a little look. Well, I personally think it's between two positions. I think you had trouble stopping the run. You had trouble over the top. Tristan Newton and Byron Murphy are gone. So you're going to address cornerback to me. It says O-line, D-line, safety. Now, you definitely addressed safety because you got an absolute wonder kid in David McKinney. So O-line. Walker, Jenkins, Myers, Tom. You do need at some point to get some more O-line. Jair Alexander, Alex Stokes. Do you think Ballantyne and Valentine are both good enough backups to Eric Stokes and Jair Alexander? You got Nixon still as well. Nixon could play cornerback as well, can't he?
Yeah, I think they're decent. I don't think they're amazing, but I think they're decent enough in order to play backup. I think it's also something that they could maybe address later on when it comes to corner. I think personally, given the way this board has fallen, I don't think there are any corners that I would consider above the two sort of main tackle guys that are left.
Yeah, I think I've just looked at your O-line. It's okay, but it's not fantastic. And there's a guy there in Graham Barton who can play right tackle, left tackle, center, right guard, left guard. He can play all 5 positions.
Yeah.
So you can get him in and go, where do you fit? Because you're better than one of the other guys we've got, even if you go in, oh, no, he's not quite as good as our tackles. Let's get him in at guard. I like Josh Myers, so I don't think he'd be playing center. So I think having a guy that can play all 5 positions on the O-line would be fantastic for the Packers. So I think Graham Barton, who you're a big fan of as well, so you've got to be happy with this pick too. So I'm going
I mean, the reason that I am a big fan of him is that I just think that he had, like you say, he has the ability to move across the whole of the O-line, and I think that is going to be something that is going to be huge and something that the Packers really go for. So to me, it makes sense. Like I say, corner, don't get me wrong, I think they could do with help at corner. I just don't think it's something that when you look at who's left, I just don't think they go for him. That's
on their day. Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes are a 1 and 2 cornerback.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why
they both struggle with fitness.
Yeah,
but I think both Ballantyne and Valentine are both decent backups. I think they are talented backups. So
they look solid, didn't they? They did all right this year.
Let's not waste pick 25 on another backup. And then let's get a guy in at camp that you can go, where do you play? Because we know you're fantastic.
Yeah. Right. I have got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they probably... I think, again, actually, I think you could argue O-line. I think you could argue edge, but I feel like the best edges have gone. Once the top 3 edges are gone, I personally don't think any of them are first round talent myself. So I feel like O-line, you could go corner, but again, I personally think there's one more O-line guy who is above a lot of the others, and I think they'd be better off going for him. So I am going to go for Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their O-line. Yeah, they could do with a right tackle. Don't need a left tackle. Sorted a left tackle, not a problem.
Yeah.
Edge. They could probably do with help at edge. I'm guessing you prefer Guyton over Chop Robinson.
I do. I mean, a lot of people have said Chop Robinson, haven't they? I just think that I think the O-line is probably slightly more important for them as well. I think that it's helping Baker out and stuff like that. So I think that's not a bad move.
Arizona already got themselves a tackle. Got 2 tackles. Jonah Williams, Paris Johnson, sorted, no problem. I think they've now dipped into the offense. They now dip into defense. I think they do need help getting some pressure on the quarterback. So I think now is the time for Chop Robinson to probably come off the board. Hello, not Darius Robinson, Chop Robinson. Nearly got it then. So yeah, I think through the process we've said it'll be offense then defense for them. So I think Chop Robinson for me. I think he's got a lot of upside in the rushing the passer in the passing game. So caused Michigan a lot of problems. Caused them to revert to not throwing the ball and just running the whole game. So I'm going to lock Chop Robinson in there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like I said, I don't really have him as a first round one, but I understand why the position is the main need for them. Buffalo Bills, again, we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. They need a wide receiver. Stephon Diggs is gone. You've got Brian Thomas sitting there. So I think because of that, it just seems like the obvious one to go for.
Yeah, got wide receiver one upside to me. Very talented. Could work wonders with Josh Allen. It's going to need someone to throw the ball to. Can't just drop it to Shakir on those short ones all the time. Although he has got Knox and Kincaid and James Cook out of the backfield. Right, I've got the Detroit Lions. Again, they addressed cornerback in free agency, which was their biggest need. You felt it wasn't quite good enough with Carlton Davis. Kool-Aid McKinstry's there. I still think they do need help at cornerback.
Yes,
I still like Kool-Aid McKinstry, so I'm going to take Kool-Aid McKinstry. Before the whole draft started, before the season started in college, he was my cornerback one. So it's just the fact that they think he's good and he's very talented. They just don't think that he's got that high of a ceiling. They think he's already at his peak, so there's no room to grow. But he was very, very talented. So
corner makes a lot of sense. It's what we've been saying, isn't it, for most of this, that it's the position they need to go to. So yeah, completely agree with that. I have got the Baltimore Ravens pick 30 now. We've spoken about this quite a little bit, and I'm starting to think that you're probably right that this is what they need to do. They need to go for a wide receiver, and they need to get in there before the rush at the beginning of the second round, which I think is probably going to come in this draft. So it really is dependent on who you like the most here.
I think there has to be a fit for this because they've got Zay Flowers, so you're not looking.
I don't think you're looking for a small guy. I think you're looking for a big-bodied wide receiver. I look at who's there. I think the like you say, that fit it takes Franklin out, it takes Wilson out, I think it takes McConkey out a little bit as well. It takes out Xavier Worthy, obviously. So I think Adonai Mitchell is probably the logical guy for them. They need another weapon, big-bodied guy who can play opposite Flowers, as we said. So yeah, Mitchell for me to the Ravens.
Right, I've got luxury pick from the 49ers. Let's pull up their little who they've got. San Francisco. Where do you need help? Possibly O-line. Possibly center, possibly center / guard. John Feliciano's not getting any younger, is he? I think it's a luxury pick. I think Jackson Powell-Johnson can play both center and guard. I think it will be interior as well. They need. I think they're fine. Cornerback, no. I think Jackson Powell-Johnson makes sense for them. I didn't think they'd go first round, but it's a luxury pick at 31. I think they do need some help on that O-line, and it never hurts when you're going to go deep into the season that we think they're going to go through. So getting help at that, do you think this is the right way to go for them?
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad pick at all. I mean, he's the best center, isn't he, of the class by a long way. So you're getting a guy who a lot of people have as a first round grade. So it makes a lot of sense in that respect. And like you say, it does feel a little bit elite. I suppose the issue with, I don't really know a lot of Powers-Johnson's college tape. You might know a bit more than me about him, but I don't know too much. Is he able to play in any other positions other than center?
Yeah, guard. He'll play guard. He'll probably play guard. He can play guard and center, so he'll be absolutely fine anywhere on that interior. So if they need him to sit next to Brendel and play instead of Feliciano or learn the role a little bit, then that's not a problem. So he doesn't need to come straight in at centre. He can play that guard role. He can move across. So it's not a problem. He's very, very talented, big, powerful guy. So he'll have no problem moving anywhere on that interior.
So yeah, so then that kind of makes a lot of sense for him to go there, and that's a good one to have. Final pick, Kansas City Chiefs. I think they need a wide receiver, even though they have brought in Marquise Brown. Obviously, there are potential issues with Rashee Rice at the moment that we don't really know what that's going to be, whether that is anything major or not. Who knows? So. But I do think they need a wide receiver despite all of that anyway, just for some depth. Because personally, I don't think Sky Moore has done enough. I don't think Darius Toney has done enough. And so their offense is basically, at wide receiver, is essentially Rice and Brown. I think the NFL now, you have to have 3 at least, I think. So wide receiver is where I'm going to go. A lot of people are going Xavier Worthy here because of the speed. I'm going to go for who I think is probably, he's got a bit of speed, but also I think it's just the talent as well. And it's from the tape that we all felt he was really good, and the combine he dropped. I'm going to stick with Troy Franklin on this one. I still think he's a first-round talent, so I'm going to go for him.
Yeah, unbelievable season last season. So the last 2 picks coming from Oregon. That's it. That's the draft. Let's try and go away. Screen's too big for that. There we go. All the picks are in. Adam, is there anyone not on the board? I think we've covered all the big names. I don't think there's anyone we've missed. I'm really happy with that. I think we've done well. Well, I think we'll put that out onto Twitter and various other social medias and get abused a little bit. So we'll definitely put that out. Really enjoyed that. Love this whole process. Love doing the mocks. Love talking about where people are going to go and why. Hopefully we're correct. If someone wants to mock our draft and go through it and tell us differently, then feel free. Really looking forward to the shows coming up. But that's all we've got time for, Adam. I think we've an hour. Perfect time for a mock draft, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not bad. It's done well. So yeah, we've got plenty more coming out. Obviously, draft show, more draft on the chat show on Tuesday night. We're going to do our sort of like some late round picks, aren't we, next week? Yeah. That we'll talk about. I'll probably be plenty of wide receivers in that, I would have thought, and running backs. So yeah, some late round picks that we really like the look of. And then by the time we get there, it'll be the mock draft of what we actually think is going to happen. And then it will be the draft. So, yeah.
So keep it with the franchise tag, and we will be back very soon.